The gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses who are here testifying today. I want to dive a little bit into the Paycheck Protection Program and a bit of what we've seen afterwards. I have one of 3 reports here that I'd like to present today, a Forbes report detailing some of the revenues that banks have made during the Paycheck Protection Program, and also digging into a little bit of the fact that when it comes to loan forgiveness, Small Business Administration recently opened a portal for small business owners to appeal directly with them for forgiveness. Chase, Bank of America, and PNC have opted out of that direct program. Is that correct, Mr. Demchik, Mr. Diamond, and Mr. Moynihan?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it.
I'm not aware of the answer.
Okay, so for your awareness, your banks have opted out of Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness,
Excuse me, that is incorrect.
with the portal with the SBA. Thank you. I was trying to finish my sentence. Now, I would like to zero in a little bit on Bank of America. Mr. Moynihan, are you aware of how many PPP loans your bank has facilitated on behalf of its customers?
About 400 and almost 500,000, and 95% are forgiven or repaid already, and we're finishing up the rest of them.
How many of those loans, in terms of the percentage, have those loans been forgiven in full, as opposed to in part?
The ones that are forgiven are mostly, vast majority be forgiven in full.
In full. What we're starting to see here with some reporting in The Intercept, and this is just one reason why I was curious about the numbers, is that we're starting to see that Bank of America is refusing to forgive some PPP loans in full, but in terms of the portal that Bank of America have set up, it's very difficult to appeal these decisions. And in fact, what we're seeing is that Bank of America had pre-populated a forgiveness amount in their portal, sometimes drastically lower than small business owners had anticipated and had qualified for. And in instances where these small business owners have documentation, there's very little recourse or appeal. Does your portal make it easy to appeal their decisions so that after 2 attempts, the SBA can then take over the case?
Borrowers can appeal. 95% of loans are forgiven and repaid today, so we're only talking about 5% of loans, and a substantial part of those are going through the appeal process as we speak. And so the borrowers can appeal, and we're in the process of finishing up that last 20,000 or so loans. It's a small amount of loans, and they're finishing.
And to certify that 95% is a full forgiveness amount percent?
Forgiveness or repayment. Some of them,
Full forgiveness, not partial.
the vast majority are full forgiveness, but I can get the data to you.
So is the 90, I apologize, not to, belabor the point, but is that 95% a partial loan forgiveness or a full loan forgiveness rate?
They're getting what the borrowers are applying for the forgiveness entitled in the program. 95% of them have gone through or repaid, and the vast majority of them are full forgiveness, but they're entitled to what the program designed. The government designed the program, and we implement the program. Very short notice. 500,000 people, 10,000 people working on this program.
And
Easter weekend working on the program to help those borrowers at the time. And so we're finishing that up. It's just let the process go. And a lot of what you're reading, frankly, is not the facts because it's old. It doesn't understand how the math works. And so just give us some time. We'll give you the facts, and you'll see it. It's all in the public record.
What is the reason that Bank of America chose to opt out of the SBA portal?
I can get somebody to give you that. I have no idea of whether, I told you before, I'm not sure we did or didn't, and I have no idea why they would have made the decision, but we are processing loans as fast as anybody.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm just having a tough time. This is about $25.2 billion in loan amounts in your bank, correct? And
Not anymore. No, it's down.
But at one point in time. And so we are looking, and so you're uncertain as to why the bank has not chosen to enroll in the SBA portal?
I said we will get you the information. The amount of loans we have left on this thing is $1 billion or so. It's down to very little amount.
No worries.
It's all paid back. It's all through. The team did a great job, and we're happy to supply the information to you need.
All right, we look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this hearing. I would hope that as we discuss violent extremism, that one thing that we could all agree on is that it is wrong and dangerous for any political actor and certainly any executive administration to try to leverage the threat of violent extremism to mislead Congress, to go after political opponents, or to threaten the speech and First Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. But unfortunately, that is exactly what the Biden administration has done. And we have new insight into that today because of the actions of a patriotic whistleblower who contacted my office along with Senator Grassley a short time ago and provided to us documents from the Department of Homeland Security relating to that agency's disinformation board that Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified about sitting right there just a few weeks ago. But according to the documents that I have in my hand here that Senator Grassley and I have now made public, the testimony that Secretary Mayorkas gave to this committee, under oath, I might add, was in many respects deeply misleading. Deeply misleading. And the information we've now learned about the administration's efforts to track and censor American speech is deeply shocking. And I'd like to take a moment to go through with this whistleblower, who I thank for that person's patriotism, to go through what these documents disclose. You know, Secretary Mayorkas said that the efforts of the department with the disinformation board were new in response to my questions about whether there were documents, meeting minutes, other documents related to the disinformation board. He suggested that there weren't any because the board hadn't met. Well, in fact, we now know that the Department of Homeland Security began working on standing up this board as early as last year. In a memorandum dated September 13th, 2021, the Undersecretary of DHS writes to the Secretary, to Mayorkas, about the need for the disinformation board. And here's the interesting thing. They explicitly cite domestic violent extremism as a reason to stand up the censorship board, but it quickly goes far beyond that. In the same paragraph, they talk about the need for this disinformation board to monitor and to counter so-called disinformation about the COVID vaccine, about people who are raising question about the efficacy of masks, about people who are raising questions about the origins of COVID. So, in other words, the Department of Homeland Security is contemplating a disinformation board that will track the speech of Americans and classify it as disinformation if you raise a question about the COVID vaccine, about the origins of COVID, about the efficacy of masks, which, by the way, this administration has reversed itself on numerous times. The documents go on. The disinformation board is necessary, this memorandum says, because of those who question election integrity, because of those who have questions about January 6th. So now we get to the nub of it. We see that, in fact, this disinformation board from the beginning was meant to track and go after political speech that this administration did not favor. And for an executive department to do that, and frankly to mislead this committee about it, is deeply, deeply disturbing, and it's wrong. I mean, it's just plain wrong. As we look through the documents, you see that what the Secretary told the committee about the disinformation board's operation is just not true. He repeatedly told this committee that the disinformation board would be just a working group, just a working group. That's not what the documents say. There is a charter, a proposed charter, that the Secretary himself signed personally on February 24th, 2022, that describes the disinformation board as having the authority to set up guidelines. It has governance authority over how the department will classify what is disinformation, over what the response to disinformation should be. over who is doing what in terms of countering disinformation, which remember includes questions about COVID or questions about election integrity or questions about masks. The idea that this is just a working group is frankly completely contradicted by the documents that the whistleblower turned over to us and that the secretary himself signed. And can I just say again, for the secretary to sit in that chair and tell me that he wasn't really aware of any documents related to the Disinformation Board when he has personally signed charters, when he has personally reviewed memoranda dating back months, is misleading at best. There's also information in these documents about attempted coordination, planned coordination by the Disinformation Board with the big tech monopolies. There are meeting notes here, proposed plans of actions for members of the Disinformation Board, members of the administration, to meet with big tech executives to discuss sharing information about disinformation and tracking analytics of American citizens who are using the big tech companies' platforms and engaging in so-called misinformation. This is a big tech administration alliance to track speech. It's here in the documents. Now, I asked Secretary Mayorkas if there had been any contact with the big tech companies. He said he wasn't aware of any. I sent a letter following his testimony to Secretary Mayorkas, putting this question to him directly. And interestingly, the department's draft responses to my letter are also in these documents. Now, I'll say for the record, the department has not yet officially responded, but their draft responses are here in the whistleblower documents, and they continue the misleading half-truths. They continue in those documents to characterize this as a working group. False. I say, has the DHS conferred with any private social media company in the operation of this board? They repeat the idea that the board is merely an internal working group, and then they say the creation of the board was not discussed with any external entities. That's because we now know that they were discussing the operation of the board with big tech companies. They were seeking to partner and get analytics on law-abiding Americans. Mr. Chairman, my time has nearly expired. I would ask unanimous consent that my letter with Senator Grassley, along with the attachments, be entered into the record.
Without objection. We haven't reviewed any of those documents, but without objection.
This is startling information. This committee needs to hold a hearing to follow up on the testimony that the Secretary gave on the inconsistencies that we now find in these documents, and on, frankly, this administration's concerted efforts to mislead the American public about its own attempts to track and censor and, frankly, punish American speech, which is deeply antithetical to the First Amendment, deeply antithetical to our constitutional principles, and deeply wrong.
Nhiều đêm ngắm sao mà ước xin mình bền lâu suốt đời tình khắc sâu, nhớ thương đầy vơi mộng thấy ai mỉm cười làn môi xinh tuyệt vời để rồi buồn ơi ánh trăng soi còn đó và nghe hơi gió biết rằng mình vừa mơ. Khi yêu như nở hoa say mộng tuyệt vời nắm tương lai trong bàn tay một câu nói thôi. Đôi khi gặp nhau muốn khơi nhưng rồi lại thôi nói ra e ngại mặc theo gió trôi. Hôm nay nhìn xe kết hoa rồi ngược nẻo đường gửi thư trao cho người yêu vài câu luyến thương. Hân hoan hồn như nở hoa trông chờ hồi âm đắng cay trong lòng chỉ thấy thiếp hồng. Chiều tím không mây đường cũ bước lần về buồn nghe say dứt tim. Nhìn xe kết hoa màu trắng ngỡ rằng mình mơ pháo hồng nhuộm tiến đường. vòng tay đón anh nhưng nào thấy sầu dâng lên tim biết bao giờ cho nắm tương lai trong bàn tay một câu nói thôi đôi khi gặp nhau muốn khơi nhưng rồi lại thôi nói ra e ngại mặc theo gió trôi hôm nay nhìn xe kết hoa xuôi ngược nẻo đường gửi thư trao cho người yêu vài câu luyến trông chờ hồi âm đắng cay trong lòng chỉ thấy thiệp hồng chiều tím không mây đường cũ bước lần về buồn nghe say dứt tim nhìn xe kết hoa màu trắng ngỡ rằng mình mơ pháo hồng nhuộm tiễn lá thu chậm rơi từng lá nghe buồn buồn từng bước ai tìm về mở rộng vòng tay đón anh nhưng nào thấy sâu